Arthritis basically means inflammation of the joints. But this term is used to describe more than 100 diseases. They are not only just connected to the joints, but to the connective tissues in the body in addition to the joints. The general terminology is arthritis. But in today's talk, I think we are going to restrict our discussion to the two main problems that we face, that is rheumatoid arthritis and osteoarthritis. One is a problem which is seen in the younger population, and the other one is seen with the aging population. We'll first talk about rheumatoid arthritis. This is, as we all know, is called as an autoimmune disease. And this particular disease is characterized by a chronic inflammatory polyarthritis of unknown etiology. There are a number of patients wherein you really can't pinpoint to a definitive cause why there is this particular disease coming in that patient. And the females are more commonly affected, and as I said in the beginning, the younger population is the one which is more commonly affected as compared to the elder population. There is a systemic involvement in addition to the joint involvement in the form of involvement of the skin, eyes, lungs and blood vessels. And very close to the cardiology talk which we had just now, there is a 60% increase in the risk of cardiovascular disease related deaths in patients of rheumatoid arthritis. The course of the disease is very fluctuating. You will find many rheumatoid patients who get aggravation in the winter, which is a little more common presentation. But I have a number of patients who have aggravation in the summer season. So you can't really put the picture of rheumatoid arthritis as one classical picture. There are a number of patients who get aggravation by having a particular type of food, but the other patients can tolerate that food very well. So there is nothing which is absolutely a standard book picture of this disease. So one has to be very vigilant in managing these patients. As far as the pathophysiology is concerned, I think this is a cell-mediated immune response against the soft tissues, cartilage and bone. The rheumatoid factor, which is the factor which is used for diagnosing this disease in most of the patients which comes positive. This is an IgM antibody which recognizes and attacks the native IgG antibodies, and an immune complex is then deposited in the end tissues like the kidney or the synovium or the joint. The mononuclear cells are the primary cellular mediators of the tissue destruction in rheumatoid arthritis, and interleukin-1 and TNF-alpha, they are the parts of cascade that leads to the joint damage. I think these interleukins and TNF-alpha is the one which is an inflammatory modulator in even the cardiovascular disease, as Dr. Chopra has just now described. In rheumatoid arthritis pathophysiology, I think we have a nice, beautiful video which is quite self-explanatory. So I'll like you to see this video. Can you just play the video?
Underlying inflammation leads to many of the characteristic signs and symptoms of RA, such as pain and swelling of the joints. Inflammation results from abnormal propagation and activation of many types of immune cells, resulting in the secretion of cytokines and other mediators that sustain and amplify the inflammatory environment. As a key pro-inflammatory cytokine, TNF-alpha, along with other cytokines, activate immune cells, including macrophages, as well as other cells such as synovial fibroblasts. In a key step, activated macrophages and synovial fibroblasts release pro-inflammatory cytokines, including TNF-alpha, IL-1 and IL-6, and mediators of vascular growth, including VEGF. VEGF is essential to the process of blood vessel proliferation, or angiogenesis, which facilitates an influx of activated cells. These cells contribute to the growth of pannus and sustain the inflammatory cycle. The growing, vascularized pannus develops villous projections that result in better access to the cartilage and bone and therefore greater opportunity for the activated cells to release damaging inflammatory mediators and enzymes. In the interface between pannus and cartilage, activated synovial fibroblasts and macrophages are a source of enzymes that degrade the cartilage matrix. These include MMPs or matrix metalloproteinases. Thus, activated cells in pannus are key instigators of cartilage destruction. Chondrocytes are the main cellular component of cartilage and normally produce the extracellular matrix. However, in response to stimulation by TNF-alpha, IL-1, and other inflammatory mediators, chondrocytes become activated in the rheumatoid joint. Activated chondrocytes secrete more inflammatory factors and more metalloproteinases, MMPs, which aggravates inflammation and cartilage damage. The cumulative result is irreversible cartilage damage and joint space narrowing. Under normal conditions, bone remodeling involves a tightly regulated balance between bone resorption and bone formation. However, excessive TNF-alpha helps stimulate osteoclastogenesis and bone destruction. In the marrow, TNF-alpha helps stimulate monocyte differentiation into osteoclast precursors. At inflamed joints, in the presence of macrophage colony stimulating factor, TNF-alpha, and rank ligand, osteoclast precursors differentiate into mature osteoclasts, resulting in bone resorption. Thus, the direct and indirect effects of the TNF-alpha on osteoclast maturation and activation culminate in focal bone erosions and irreversible joint damage.
Thank you. I think this video was quite self-explanatory about how the pathophysiology of the rheumatoid disease goes on and how the synovium and the cartilage and the bone gets destroyed. This is a diagrammatic representation of the same which we have seen in the video. There is a cascade of events which includes antigen-antibody and antibody-antibody reactions. There is a microvascular proliferation and obstruction and synovial pannus formation. The joints get subluxated, the chondrocytes die and the joints get destroyed. And there is a deformity which is created into the joints. There is an inflammation of the tendon sheath, because of which there is subluxation of the tendons and number of times rupture of the tendons in the rheumatoid disease. The common way by which we as orthopedicians or the rheumatologists or the physicians, we manage the patients with rheumatoid arthritis is basically by the drugs, the NSAIDs, the disease-modifying drugs like methotrexate, hydroxychloroquine, and leflunomide. In acute cases or in some of the resistant cases where these drugs are not effective, you have to take help of steroids. And the new addition to the armamentarium is biologics, which are now being used mainly by the rheumatologist. We will talk about it a bit later. Exercises also form a very important part of the management of rheumatoid arthritis so as to keep the joints mobile and to prevent the deformities. And in cases where in spite of all this there is a destruction of the joint, then you have to think in terms of a joint replacement. Now let's talk about osteoarthritis. This is primarily a degenerative disease of synovial joints that causes progressive loss of articular cartilage. Any synovial joint which is moving, whether it is knee, whether it is hip, whether it is a facet joint of a spine, these joints, they have a tendency to have wear and tear of the articular cartilage. And this wear and tear definitely leads to an inflammatory response, which leads to pain, ligamentous laxity, joint deformity, and restriction of the movements. And in the elderly population, I think this is the most common form of arthritis that we see. Females are more commonly affected, basically because of the postmenopausal osteoporosis that they develop and the obesity, which also comes as a part of the postmenopausal disease. And the incidence of this osteoarthritis goes on increasing with age. There are certain risk factors which are modifiable and certain risk factors which are non-modifiable. And amongst the risk factors which are modifiable, obesity, the kind of trauma that one can get, the occupational injuries that one can get, and the muscle weakness because of inactivity. These are some of the factors which can be controlled. But there are certain factors like gender, age, genetical background, and racial background which is not in the control of anybody. Osteoarthritis is primarily a degenerative disease, but it has a definite inflammatory component. And again, TNF-alpha and interleukin-1 are the major cytokines involved in the pathogenesis of the osteoarthritis. The synovial fluid also shows elevated levels of interleukin-6, interleukin-17, and matrix metaproteolase. In management of osteoarthritis, like cardiac diseases, I think lifestyle modification is a very important thing. One has to be very particular about the activities of day-to-day living, how you do it, whether you sit cross-legged, whether you sit on the ground, whether you maintain your weight properly. The physiotherapy plays a very important role, and it also helps in weight loss. Then supportive braces also have a very good effect in preventing the pain and the further damage to the joints. Various drugs that we use, occasionally, very selectively, one should use corticosteroid injections intra-articular. The new viscoelastic injections which are available for intra-articular use, like Cinevisc and the other brands which are available, they are also quite useful in early stages of osteoarthritis, and 1 or 2 injections given can easily give a relief of almost about 1 year. And in cases where all these modalities fail, you have to take help of surgery in the form of various osteotomies to change the weight-bearing axis, arthroscopic lavage, the autologous chondrocyte implantation, which is one of the new things which has been coming up, wherein you can patch up the worn out cartilage areas with autologous chondrocytes which are grown in the laboratory, and you can replant them inside. And in worst cases, you have to help the patients by doing joint replacement. This is an example wherein you can see that if the joint is very badly worn out, you have to do a joint replacement. Another example of a hip joint wherein you have a completely worn out hip with involvement of both the components of the joint, you have to opt for a joint replacement. The current options which are available to treat these diseases, they have some limitations. Like NSAIDs, they are not very suitable for elderly patients because they are not safe for long-term use. That can cause gastritis, nausea, vomiting, GI bleed. The NSAIDs are known to cause the renal toxicity, and one has to be very careful in using these patients in elderly, these drugs in elderly patients because of this renal toxicity. Many of these drugs have hepatotoxicity, and there is an increased cardiovascular disease risk. The steroids again have a problem of gastritis, ulcerations. It can aggravate diabetes, or it can induce diabetes, hypertension. It can induce osteoporosis. It can induce avascular necrosis in the femoral heads. It can cause muscle atrophy. So it has got its own limitations. There are DMRDs like methotrexate, hydroxychloroquine, or leflunomide. Again, they are very slow in action, and the drugs take several weeks to show the clinical effects. The loss of efficacy is also very commonly seen in many of these drugs. The drug which is useful in the beginning, after 6 months or a year, the same drug becomes practically ineffective, and you have to think of changing over to another drug. The response to the drug is also not complete. And in many of these drugs, especially like methotrexate, you have to have a very close monitoring on the counts of the patients. You have to have a close monitoring on the liver function test. The biologics is a new addition, but they are not totally free of problems. Basically, they are target specific in these diseases. Most of the drugs which are available, biologics, they are available in only injectable form. And there are a lot of injection site reactions. Secondly, in these patients, there is increased risk of tuberculosis and other bacterial infections because of the reduced immunity. And there is a possibility of demyelinating diseases like multiple sclerosis developing or incidence of cancer going up. And more than all these things, I think they are prohibitively expensive. The one therapy of these drugs can cost to the tune of about ₹1 lakh, which is, I think, beyond the reach of many of our Indian patients. After keeping in front of us the various restrictions, I think one of the new innovative option which is coming up is curcumin. As it is claimed to be useful in cardiac patients, it is also claimed to be useful in the rheumatoid patients and osteoarthritic patients. As it has been very rightly said, it is not a drug. It comes under the category of nutraceuticals, which is a combination of nutrition and the pharmaceutical drug. It includes food and food derivatives that provide health and medical benefits. And one such example is our age-old turmeric or haldi. In RA and OA, as we have seen in the pathophysiology, the nuclear factor kappa B is one of the main factor which is responsible for the inflammatory process which is initiated. And it is called as a on and off switch of the inflammation. And because of this disorder of nuclear factor kappa B activation, these different collagen diseases are seen like rheumatoid osteoarthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, psoriatic arthropathy, and juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. So the nuclear factor kappa B is the master switch of inflammation. And as we will see further, I think this slide has been already shown by Dr. Chopra, the mechanism of action and how the translocation goes on into the nucleus and how the nucleus is activated to produce the inflammatory mediators. The outcome as far as the joints is concerned is in the synovial membrane there is a inflammation, proliferation and pannus formation, which has been shown in that video. In chondrocytes there is increased activity of COX-2 and MMPs, which leads to cartilage destruction. And as we have seen in the video, in the bone there is a osteoclastogenesis with bone erosion. So this nuclear factor kappa B plays a crucial role in inflammatory and immune responses through the regulation of genes encoding the pro-inflammatory cytokines. Curcumin is a biologically active phytochemical that is derived from the plants, compound obtained from rhizomes of Curcuma longa. And Curcuma longa is nothing but turmeric, which is used as a medicine for ages in our Ayurvedic medicines and even in the home remedies. You will find still the old ladies, if somebody gets an injury, they will bring haldi and put it on the wound. And they claim that it works better than many of the new ointments and drugs. The turmeric powder itself contains only 5% curcumin. And this exists in two forms, keto and enol form. The keto form is actually soluble only in liquid, and the enol form is soluble in both solid and liquid. And this has a pleiotropic this is a pleiotropic molecule in the sense that it has anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, anti-proliferative, anti-angiogenic action. Some of these properties are being used for the cardiac drugs, and the other properties are being used for the orthopedic problems. This particular drug controls the master switch of inflammation, that is NF-κB inhibitor action, and this is how the drug can act. It inhibits IBK kinase enzyme. It prevents the activation of nuclear factor kappa B, prevents translocation into the nucleus, and prevents the release of inflammatory mediators. So it has got anti-inflammatory action, plus this curcumin has got anti-catabolic or anabolic effect on chondrocytes. It has got anti-apoptotic action, and it reduces the apoptotic features induced by interleukin 1b and stimulates the anti-apoptotic factors. What is the evidence? As we were talking about various trials for the cardiac things, there are a couple of trials available in the orthopedic field. In rheumatoid arthritis, this particular drug has been used with diclofenac, and it provides 52% reduction in the CRP levels. That is why curcumin is effective and safe in patients with rheumatoid arthritis. There are another trial or pilot study in rheumatoid arthritis where, as we discussed in cardiac cases, very short series, only 18 patients were treated with curcumin for 2 weeks, and it improved the joint swelling, morning stiffness, and walking time, and it was very well tolerated. There are a couple of studies available in osteoarthritis, much bigger series. The first series was about 820 osteoarthritic patients treated on outdoor basis, and this drug was used for a period of 6 months, and the curcumin therapy provided significant improvement in the pain, joint flexibility, and better quality of life. So in osteoarthritic patients, this particular therapy was well tolerated, and it definitely had a clinical evidence of improvement in the condition. Another trial which was done with combination with ibuprofen, and there was a comparative study done with ibuprofen, and the anti-inflammatory action of this drug was equivalent to ibuprofen with a much better GI tolerance. This drug was used as a monotherapy without having any anti-inflammatory drug in combination, and 100 patients with osteoarthritis were treated for 8 months. And in these patients, there was a significant increase in the WOMAC score. There was a 3-fold increase in the treadmill walking performance. So it was concluded that this drug is quite effective and safe as a monotherapy in osteoarthritis. In combination with diclofenac, this drug was found to have better efficacy than the single drug as diclofenac. This drug was used in combination with celecoxib, prednisolone, and methotrexate in both osteo and rheumatoid arthritis, and it was found to be definitely synergistic in action with these drugs. As far as the safety is concerned, the US FDA has given this drug a certification that this is generally recognized as safe drug. There are no noticeable adverse events were observed with the doses up to 8 grams daily for 3 months. And unlike NSAIDs, it was free from adverse effects on kidney, liver, and cardiovascular system even after long-term use. Occasional patients may complain mild and transient nausea and diarrhea. The conventional curcumin is a hydrophobic polyphenolic compound. If you have seen turmeric being used, it doesn't dissolve in water, so it's a hydrophobic compound. and it is not detectable in plasma even after the use as it is. It doesn't reach systemic organs and tissues, so the efficacy was doubtful. The clinical trials were carried out with conventional curcumin, and there was no positive evidence that it is going to be of any use. So a lot of work was done to make a bioavailable form of curcumin, which will be well tolerated. And by a special technology called as self-macroemulsifying drug delivery system technology, this particular curcumin was made from hydrophobic to hydrophilic form, where the droplets become soluble in water, and the absorption and the penetration into the tissues is improved. And this particular bioavailable form of curcumin definitely had a better efficacy in low doses. To summarize, this particular drug inhibits the master switch of inflammation, that is nuclear factor kappa B. It decreases the release of inflammatory prostaglandins and cytokines. The monotherapy was found effective in osteoarthritis and partly in rheumatoid arthritis. The efficacy at par with NSAIDs was seen, but with much better GI tolerance. And when it was given with NSAIDs or steroids or methotrexate, it definitely had a synergistic action, and it helped in reducing the dosage of these drugs. And when this particular drug was used with methotrexate, it helped in reducing the risk of hepatotoxicity. And unlike biologics, it can be given orally, which is one of the great advantage. And the price of this drug is not declared, but I am sure it will be definitely cheaper than the biologics which are available today in the market. This bioenhanced curcumin has a place in therapy in rheumatoid arthritis and osteoarthritis as a monotherapy and as a combination therapy. And it is more so useful in patients who are intolerant to NSAIDs and steroids and DMRDs, or they have a compromised renal or hepatic function, or they have a cardiovascular disorders. This particular drug, as it has been already mentioned, has got direct action on adipocytes and pancreatic cells and hepatic cells. So it has got other potential uses, as it has been already discussed in cardiothoracic, cardiology, plus obesity, and even diabetes and in insulin resistance. So in conclusion, turmeric has been known to have medical properties since ages. Ayurveda has described its usefulness in various conditions. The turmeric extract curcumin has been launched now. It has shown promising results in rheumatoid and osteoarthritis management, and research has been going on in the other potential uses of curcumin in other disorders. I think let's make life pain-free and mobile. I am thankful to the Cadila people for inviting me to give a talk on these two common topics of interest for all the orthopedicians as well as the general physicians. And I'm thankful to all of you for spending the Saturday evening for a little theoretical and boring topic and listening patiently to this particular talk. Thank you very much.